Autumn, 39 AD. The Bay of Baiae. A floating bridge of merchant ships stretches 3 miles across the Gulf. The ships are tied together. They cover their decks with planks and dirt. The emperor rides across it at a gallop. He is 27 years old. He wears Alexander the Great's breastplate. This breastplate was taken from the conqueror's sarcophagus in Alexandria. The bridge exists. An astrologer once told his predecessor that Gaius had no chance of becoming emperor. He said it was as likely as riding a horse across this bay. On the second night of the celebration, courtiers fall off the planking. They land in the dark water behind him. He is laughing. 3 years earlier, the same man had ridden into Rome to universal celebration. March, 37 AD. The son of Germanicus is back. Germanicus was a beloved general. Someone poisoned him in Antioch when Gaius was 7. Now, Gaius returns to claim the throne. People sacrifice tens of thousands of animals in 3 months. The Senate competes to praise him. Tacitus talks about the subject's 6 years on Capri with Tiberius. He gives a clear verdict. There was never a better servant. There was also never a worse master. Then, in October of that same year, the fever. Rome mourns openly at his bedside. He recovers, but the man who walks out of the sick room is not the man who walked in. The subject presents, from this point forward, as 2 figures occupying one body. Suetonius wrote 80 years later. He had access to the imperial archives. He is clear. He was not sound in body or mind. Case file opened. The subject presents 2 overlapping personality disorders and 1 neurological substrate. Primary diagnosis: narcissistic personality disorder, DSM-5, code 301.81. The manual requires 5 of 9 criteria for a clinical finding. The subject meets all 9. Comorbid overlay: antisocial personality disorder, DSM-5, code 301.7. You need 3 criteria. There are 7 total. The subject meets all 7. Beneath the personality architecture, modern neurology identifies a specific biological substrate. A 2022 study in the journal Curious by Tulio Muniz and his team says that Suetonius wrote about the subject's childhood. He described the subject's epilepsy. This is epilepsy. They claim it became status epilepticus during the illness in 37 AD. They say the episode caused interictal psychosis. It affects 9.3% of people with temporal lobe epilepsy. Symptoms are mood swings, delusions, paranoia, and aggression. Psychoanalyst Erich Fromm coined the term for this clash in 1964. Otto Kernberg formalized it 2 decades later. They called it malignant narcissism. It includes narcissistic personality disorder. It also has antisocial behavior. There are paranoid thoughts too. Egosyntonic sadism is part of it. This means they enjoy seeing others suffer instead of feeling sorry. By every measurable clinical criterion, the subject is the textbook case. 3 behavior clusters, 3 documented sources, 3 textbook matches. Criterion 1 of narcissistic personality disorder: a grandiose sense of self-importance. Around 39 to 40 AD, the subject orders the removal of heads from statues of gods in the empire. He replaces them with casts of his own face. He calls himself Jupiter in the Capitoline Temple. Then he switches to Neptune, and later to Hercules. He changes his identity based on his mood. Criterion 3: the belief that one is special, above ordinary constraint. When his grandmother Antonia gives him advice, he says his rule: remember, I can do anything to anyone. Criterion 7 of narcissistic personality disorder: lack of empathy. And here the documentation grows unambiguous. The subject sees a crowd cheering for a racing faction he dislikes. He wishes, as Suetonius writes, that the Roman people had only one neck. His personal motto, borrowed from the tragedian Accius, was simply, Oderint dum metuant. Let them hate me, so long as they fear me. And yet, on the 10th of June, 38 AD, the same emperor sat for days beside his dying sister Drusilla, 21 years old. Suetonius notes that he never left her side during her illness. After she died, he wouldn't allow anyone to remove the body. By every measurable clinical criterion, the evidence is consistent. The remaining question is, what is happening inside the brain that produced it? Modern neuroimaging has begun to map what this brain may have looked like from the inside. The key area is the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. This part of the brain helps us understand other people's reality when it is healthy. A 2021 study from Jena University Hospital involved 103 people. Nanatic and his team published it in Scientific Reports. The study found a link between narcissistic traits and gray matter changes. These changes happened in 3 areas. They are the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, the orbitofrontal cortex, and the anterior insula. This network helps with empathy and moral decisions. It also creates tension before cruel acts. Picture that friction as a physical drag. In a healthy brain, the moment before harm registers as a small internal pulling back, a cost. In the diagnostic profile the subject presents, that drag may simply have been absent. The decision to harm was not overridden. It was never opposed. Add 4 years of documented insomnia. That is just 3 hours of sleep each night. Then, the cortisol system takes over. Modern psychiatry would call this a perfect storm. The Romans called it a god. The reign lasted 3 years and 10 months. The treasury of Tiberius held 2.7 billion sesterces. This was the result of 23 years of careful management. However, it was spent in less than 2 years. Senators were executed on fabricated charges to confiscate their estates. The emperor planned to install a statue in the temple in Jerusalem. This move would have sparked a regional war. However, his assassination stopped it. On January 24, 41 AD, a Praetorian tribune named Cassius Chaerea killed the subject. He did it in a hidden passage on the Palatine. He often mocked Chaerea for his high voice. His wife and 1-year-old daughter were killed the same day. And if any of this sounds familiar, that is because the diagnosis did not die with the subject. Modern psychiatry has a name for this mix of disorders: malignant narcissism. Kernberg wrote it down in 1984. Fromm mentioned it earlier, in 1964. Grandiosity and antisocial behavior occur together. Paranoid thoughts also appear. Ego-syntonic cruelty joins them. Together, they create a clear clinical signature. Kernberg codified the criteria in part because the 20th century kept producing Caligulas. The evidence does not invite sympathy. It demands diagnosis. The subject is not a historical anomaly. The subject is the reference case. Return to Baiae. The water is still. The bridge of ships is 3 miles long over the Gulf. A 27-year-old emperor rides fast. He wears a dead conqueror's breastplate. The courtiers are still falling into the dark water behind him. He is laughing. Modern psychiatry might call that laughter a flat response to grandiose joy. It is built on a reward system that thrives on the suffering of others. The Romans had no word for it. They called him a god, and then a monster, and then, for 2,000 years, a mystery. The evidence does not invite sympathy. It demands diagnosis. Was the subject born broken? Was he just what unchecked power turns into? A flawed mind and 4 years without sleep can lead to this. Close file.